for this triennium, and I'm happy to declare the meeting open. A gentle reminder that our hui is being live streamed, and Manaia, thank you for agreeing to open our hui cup here.
Kia ora tātou, e karakia tātou. Ka hui tātou ki tahi, te oranga o ngā hapori, tō tātou kaupapa matua, kia urupu, kia tōtika, kia mai hoki tātou, kia mau te koe. We come together as one. The well-being of our communities is our priority. Let us be diligent, prudent and courageous. Let's embrace the challenge. Haumie, huie, bye.
So in terms of items of business, the first is apologies or any leave of absence. I recognise, team, that a lot of you have been through a hui already today, so thank you for holding in there. Let's get through this. There being none, we'll move on. I'm guessing there's no urgent business. Any declarations of interest from Risk and Assurance Committee members? I need to declare myself being a director on Waikato Waters Limited. Could I please have someone move that declaration? Thank you. We have Deputy James moving, and we have Mayor Ash seconding. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, kumana carried. The first item on our agenda is 7.1. Welcome to new and returning members of the Risk and Assurance Committee. So welcome Mayor Ash, Deputy Mayor James, elected members, Manaia and the NPDC team, guests in person and online, and also mana whenua o tēnei rohe. If any of the members that are new for this particular triennium would like to say anything, you are welcome. And you're also welcome if you don't want to do that at home. So over to you guys. Kia ora.
Yeah, just like to say, welcome and thank you. It's great to be back on the Risk and Assurance meeting, and looking forward to the next 3 years and working with you, JP, together. And yeah, so for the new councillors on, you give quite a bit of knowledge and insight into what happens with the council committee. And also thank you to our previous councillors that are taking up the role. Thank you.
Just voicing that it's a pleasure to be part of this, and looking forward to the work over the next 3 years, and also just echoing his worship, looking forward to the leadership from existing members and chair as we tackle some of these big problems.
Right, so in front of us, team, is a recommendation that the new and returning members be welcomed. I am moving. Could I please have a seconder?
Sure.
All right, we have Councillor Andrew seconding. All those in favour, please say ayes. Against, kumana carried. Kia ora. The next item on our agenda is the adoption of standing orders. So I've had a discussion with the team, and in my opinion, the council adopts the standing orders on behalf of its standing committees. And although the original recommendation was that we receive and adopt, I suggest that we receive the standing orders. Do we have any dissenting view or contrary views? Do we have any comments in relation to the report in front of us on item 7.2, adoption of standing orders? There being none, I will put the recommendation, which is, or a revised recommendation that the report be received. Is that okay? Is that okay?
I'll second that.
All right, so we have Councillor Andrew seconding. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, kumana carried. Kia ora. We have item 7.3 on the agenda. Ms. Tamata in the room, would you like to speak to this one? Kia ora.
Okay. But if it's okay with you, Chairperson, I'd like to take the report as read, but just talk through a couple of the dates that we've put down for the Risk and Assurance Committee meetings for next year. I know our corridor that some of the dates are conflicting for you, and just wanted to confirm or get approval for some differing dates. So we currently have the 24th of February, which as it stands is okay, but we would require a backup date of the 3rd of March in case one of the flights doesn't eventuate. 16th of June, it remains as it is. The 20th of October, if we could amend that one to the 27th of October, and that would be subject to reporting expectations to council the following day. And then there is the 8th of December would remain the same as well.
Thanks, Tamara. Do we have any questions or comments?
Just clarification again, Tamara. The February one you wanted. Sorry, what was the standby? Sorry.
The standby date being the 3rd of March.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and do you know how long out would that be confirmed?
I can give context to that if that's okay. So I had advised Tamara that I'm in Wellington on the Monday, and I'm just flagging that if anything were to go wrong with flights, I might struggle to get back to town.
Wellington.
Not in February. You know, we're just trying to make sure that we have a contingency in place if needed.
That's perfect. Thank you.
And in terms of the October one, my diary had already been filled for the year, except for Matamata, so I was asking the leave of the committee if we could move that one to the 27th versus the 20th. So that's the first part of the report. So I think, Tamara, do you feel like you have direction in relation to that?
Yeah,
Right.
thank you.
We'll move it soon, but did you want to also speak to the second part of your report?
Sure. The work program has been drafted and sent out to staff for comment on whether these dates would be suitable for staff to report back. And it has been confirmed. So it would really be if there's anything on here that you feel as though you might like to change or add to the work program.
Do we have any comments or queries from the team? I have a couple of these, and one relates to some of the feedback from the Risk and Assurance Committee from the previous triennium, where we completed an annual staff assessment survey and came up with some feedback. And one of them talked about potential for opportunities for Risk and Assurance members to get more in-depth experience or knowledge, I guess, in terms of finance and in terms of risk, and potentially even for Kelly and Ken risk deep dives. So whether any consideration was going to be done in terms of the workshop schedule for 2023. So I can't annoy you, it's just a thought that you might want to consider in terms of how to build that in. Yeah, excellent. Right. And then the next one is in relation to the actual work program, where I was hoping that we would see, for example, when we have the review of the top risks, which risks we would be seeing in which particular Risk and Assurance Committee hui, so that we had a trajectory for at least the first year of the triennium, and that would potentially mitigate the situation that we had in the last Risk and Assurance Committee triennium, whereby we had at least 4 deep dives at our final hui. So I'm looking for, Councillor Bruce knows exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm not saying that we don't appreciate the work of the team. I'm just trying to see if we can get visibility on when we would see those coming through in our work program, so we can plan what additional things could we bring on to the agenda if needed. And then in terms of the policies, I do feel like we had done a report in the previous triennium to identify which policies were overdue for review and the timing of those, and I would have expected that those policies would have been embedded within the work program, so we had also visibility of them coming through. An example of that being within the policy suite we received on the 1st of the 7th, 2022 is when our asset management policy expired, and I would have expected to see it on our work program for 2026, similarly with a number of other policies as well. So I'm sorry that I took a long time on my feedback, but we also have a question or comment from Councillor Andrew.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I was also wondering, is there a risk priority schedule where, obviously we give greater priority to the higher the risk. Being obviously being a new boy, I'm not sure
That's a good question, and feel free to answer as well. So the team in the last training had done a lot of work in terms of understanding the top risks for Matamata-Piako District Council, and I believe we landed on 11, each of which have been categorised in terms of residual risk, in terms of inherent risk and residual risk, and that would give us a flavour of which ones had the highest level of residual risk and therefore we might want to focus on. And I think that Ken might be speaking to that a little bit more in his report. And where I was going with my comment, it would be good to kind of see those risks populated within this work program. So we had a line of sight about what's upcoming for the next year.
That's really helpful. I thought I'd just further that question in with yours, yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
So Chair, I mean, an answer to the councillor's question, yeah, we could probably prioritise. I think we could probably prioritise those deep dive reports for the highest rated risks. Yeah, we'll certainly have a look at doing that as a team.
Okay. That sounds fantastic. So in terms of what we, Ken, sorry, just one follow-up question or supplementary in relation to that. Do you think that we will see the highest rated, which I believe is information technology related, coming to the next Risk and Assurance Committee for a deep dive?
Yeah, I guess we just need to sense check that. So we'd probably prefer just to talk about it out of meeting. But we'll certainly look to prioritise the highest ranked first. And yes, you are quite right. That cybersecurity one is right up there. But we'll just need to check that we can deliver that.
Just my comment on that, but it is the high residual risk. We just want to do some penetration testing this time. We had an independent review, but we wanted to do some penetration testing. So just to set that up so it works in sync for the report to the committee.
Thank you for that clarification, and also effectively giving or setting the expectation on whether or not we would receive it at the February who we're given. There's a lot of work that needs to happen in between that time. But yeah, if you guys could have that conversation and we could see this work program populated with what's upcoming, that would be fantastic. Good. And given the feedback from Councillor Andrew, prioritised as well. Councillor Bruce?
So if that wasn't able to be done, is there another one that would be?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So we can spread the.
Yeah.
Like,
we've got a lot of cabs on the ranks, so yeah, exactly. I do think that we, I will say that I will congratulate the team because they did a lot of work in terms of what we are to do, which is why in the last 2 meetings of the training we had a lot to get through on our agenda. But we're asking for that to be a little bit more spread this year now that we have a little bit more of an understanding in that space. Thanks, team. Jemima, are you comfortable with the feedback?
Yes, sure. I've got that the report will be received. We'll adopt the meetings as discussed and come back with an updated work program in February.
That's perfect, and I think she just outlined our recommendation. Sorry, Councillor James, did you?
Yeah, I'm happy to see it, but sorry, just clarify. The meetings will be 9 o'clock. Yes, is that?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. So my preference for Risk and Assurance committee meetings is they happen in the morning.
Yes.
So yes, can we get a level of comfort around the table?
That's great.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yes,
we're still
yes.
fresh.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. All right, so I'll move the recommendation. We have a seconder and Councillor James. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Kia ora.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is 8.1, which is my chair's report. So I will take the report as read. The report includes feedback from the previous training Risk and Assurance Committee. There are some points on best practice governance, some takeaways on OAG forums that I've attended, specifically on water services reform and also on infrastructure. Finally, I give thanks to Manai and his team for their support today and throughout the triennium. And special shout out to our governance team for pulling the agenda together for us. E mihi ana kia koutou. Any comments or questions? I will disclose that I have had a chat with Kelly in terms of how we can make the share reports more value add in terms of an opportunity for the team to see them ahead of time so that they can potentially respond if there's anything of critical, I guess, importance to Matamata-Piako District Council, so just disclosing that. Other than that, the recommendation in front of us is that the information be received. We've got me, I will move, me actually seconding. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's carried. Come on. Okay, we are on item 8.2, which is the Chief Executive's update. Welcome, Lino.
Kia ora, kia mana, members of the committee. Yes, my report, what I try to do is identify issues that have just a higher risk or interest, and from this committee in terms of the terms of reference for this committee. I try not to put items on this report that are covered elsewhere in the agenda. So the items I've put on this time are the Waiho wastewater prosecution. Felt it appropriate that I summarise the judge's decision and also attach examples of how we've developed our systems in the time since that event occurred. So I have included an example of the reporting that our compliance and monitoring team do, and hopefully it's warts and all, so that the committee and council gets a complete picture of where we sit. There's also on occasion annual reports that we produce for compliance purposes, and it just so happens that the stormwater compliance reporting to the Waikato Regional Council had just been completed, so I felt it appropriate to include that comment on that. Waikato Water's limited transition is consuming a lot of Mayor Ash's and mine and the organisation's time. We had a meeting with the chair regarding risk, and there are many risks that sit in this process, but the thing that's challenging not just me but other CEs, chief executives involved in Waikato Waters is the impact it has on our organisation and making sure that we keep our processes running through to the transition. There's a real concern that change fatigue hit some of our people. We've got people, all of the councils have got people who easily decide to retire or go to another entity. They're very, as they qualified, they're very in demand, very much in demand. So in the short term at the moment, it's about let's try to make sure that our teams are fully informed and that we are supporting them through that process, as well as the residual organisation. Because when I say residual, the whole organisation, because there's so much change going on, and which is then a segue into the internal future ready group, which has been set up now. It actually helped us do our organisation review. We actually kept it going in a modified form because we could see so much legislation coming at us. And one of the functions of that group is to ensure that we are over the top. We are very much aware of what's happening. We share the perspectives internally, leverage off the expertise we have around the table, but also connect to our professional bodies, our other councils, and bring information together so that we can inform council. But just as an example, as at the date of this report, there were 20 items of legislation that we were expecting to receive that potentially we could submit on. And as of last Friday, I was advised that it's now 28. So we're going to be very strategic in where we put our efforts. Within the Waikato meeting I was at on Friday was Waikato CEs, chief executives, and we said, look, we can't all do submissions on this. Let's work together. Let's pool our resources. Let's share it out so that we can give our best effort to the pressing timeframes. So yeah, I do have a concern that we are able to inform council appropriately about all this legislative change, and more importantly, to ensure that you have the opportunity to submit on that. So those are the main issues. I probably would have included other items if I had a little bit more time. But those are certainly top of mind, which are not otherwise on the agenda. Happy to take any questions.
Probably just a comment more than a question, but just to clarify, so you know, the CEs that because of this, there's so many things to work on. So are you thinking of like some, say, splitting some of the CEs or do some, you know, check or say 5 or 6 of them, and then, you know.
Absolutely. Yes. I've asked our team if we can go back to because we've got people with strengths in lots of areas and say which ones do we want to get into first. Let's try and get into the ones that we really want to get into, but we've got to share the load.
Yeah, still an opportunity though, feedback into that council so that our view doesn't get lost.
Oh, look, it's about getting your view into that process.
Yeah.
So hopefully if for example in the resource management reform, which is should be out by now, we've got a CE who's been very involved in that whole area. She said, I will be the lead on this. I'm sure I've got people in the organisation who will want to be involved in that, but critically it is to get your feedback, each council's feedback into that process.
Yeah, because because I just can see different councils might have varying
100%.
viewpoints. Thank you.
I'm not sure whether it's just for my knowledge or not, but firstly, the report is good because it's concise in the sense that it gives us some real relevance to look at, and I applaud you on that. But can I there's some things in here that I need to know about. In Waihau, can you put a dollar figure on how much it costs for water compliance? Because you've expanded the team to 4. Just, I'm not asking you, but it's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh, look, I can't put a figure on it. What I would say is, I don't think we've been over the top. I think whether it's capital works or whether it's operationally the team, we've been trying to understand what our regulators want and respond accordingly. There'll be parties who say we haven't moved fast enough. I certainly feel that we've made substantial improvements in our whole process, operationally, in our monitoring process. But I have to be honest and say we're not there yet. We're certainly not there yet.
So when I read about the compliance and all, and I look through here, there's obviously been improvements, but it's quite dated. It's because it's relating to the report that comes here on like page 23 it's historic, isn't it? It's August 24. Is this really just an example of how you're reporting rather than a current?
So this is the July-August report for 25, but some of the issues in there actually stay current. So for example, the Waikato Regional Council, we've identified issues back in 23, 24, and they all stay current. And what we try to show is, because we've been ticking each one of them off, yes. There are no new issues necessarily reported in that time, but they remain on our radar until such time as we can clear them off of Waikato Regional Council.
Right.
So that's some of this information. For example, if I give you the October-November report, some of those items will still be on there.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. This CS, I don't know if I'm saying it right, CSView, Compliance Management System onboarded following Waihau. That was what you, as a team, decided you had to put in. Is that going to be used by Waikato auditors?
There's been a lot of, look, I have to say, I don't know. What Waikato Waters have done have gone around all of the councils, and there's a lot of commonality in terms of systems we are using. Definitely a lot of commonality. That'll be their call as to what they decide.
That's right.
I think to be fair, I think that the tool itself is not the actual critical thing. It's the processes and the disciplines
which you're getting in place. Yeah, it was just the understanding of whether there's a move into there, all right, by some of the others. When do we? I don't know how to turn it. When are we going to have a long-term resolution for the Pohimini stream water?
So that's a good example. That's an example of where the water regulator, as you may recall, we got a notice. You may not recall this.
Not long ago.
Not long ago, the water regulator raised a number of issues. The most pressing one for the water regulator is the raw water supply to the houses on the Pohimini line. We are actually instructed to have a program specifically of a solution for the water regulator. And one of those was to actually have a draft solution to the water regulator by December, which we've done, and to actually be in an implementation phase early next year, which we're on track to do. Yes, it's an example of something that, to be honest, the regulator has percolated, even though there's only 9 to 13 houses involved on it, and it's been going on for a long, long time. And as far as we know, there've been no health issues. The regulator is saying that's an unacceptable risk. The regulator has a particular focus on boil water notices, and we are infamous for the length of time that we have had ours. It's an example of an issue that could have been resolved a lot earlier. I am very pleased to say it's one of our top projects in terms of compliance, and I'm pleased to say the team are on track with that one.
Councillor Andrew for a question.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I've got an observation and a question, I suppose. So the observation is the Waiha wastewater treatment plant essentially being eliminated and closed down, and then the waste being transferred to Tiara. So we've eliminated the risk out of Waiha, but we've transferred that risk to Tiara with a desludging needed and a lack of capacity. Just want to acknowledge the staff's concern with going into the waters. But from my point of view, the risk is, from a governance point of view, the risk is loss of control of those assets, I suppose, going into the merger, and the fact that our council is going to be stuck on a 4% cap, I suppose, but the waters will have no cap on it whatsoever. So the perception of the public when they get their water bill, if we lose control of that billing cycle or whatever, to a ratepayer, a water rates bill is still a rates bill, and we'll probably get the backlash.
Well, I can say that one of your best mitigation measures for the loss of control, or probably your best, is your statement of expectations, which the mayor we've already had our first meeting in relation to that, and that particular point has been made by Mayor and his colleagues, exactly what you're saying. So that document is a very important document for accountability of the entity, and we need to ensure that, and the mayor role is to ensure it reflects your priorities.
I've just got a couple of questions. One is you talk about, in terms of the High Court judgment, the judge talked about public confidence and iwi trust were undermined. Have you had any feedback from Te Mamatawhenua Forum or any others in relation to that?
Look, I have to say, one of the things I'll be honest and say embarrasses me. I went into court for the first time, and Norm Hill was there, and Norm said, "What are you doing?" He said, "If I knew what you were doing, I would have been here supporting you." And so I'm embarrassed to say that our iwi were not informed. So I have been in, and Norm did provide a statement in support of what we're doing in a wider context in terms of cultural sensitivity and what we're trying to do with Matamata, for example. I am going to give a formal apology. I've been talking to Norm also about another issue and saying I'm going to be issuing a formal policy to the 3 specific iwi mentioned in the judgment. But the thing that I'm most embarrassed about is we weren't ahead of that. And I'm not being critical of anybody. It's just that it is embarrassing that we're saying after the event. And what I would say is we've got some outstanding examples within our team Matamata wastewater treatment plant, we've had lots of compliments from mana whenua, Ngāti Hinarangi, Ngāti Haua, and Ngāti Haua, and who am I missing? Raukawa. Who've been working on that consent with us and been kept informed of what's happening out there. And when we have an issue or an incident down there, our team are reporting straight away. That's great in terms of the relationship. I've got some areas where I need to work harder, and it's really, look, it's not that our people don't have the right focus, it's just building those steps into our process so that they're done up front rather than at the end.
Thank you. And look, a comment as well in terms of you note in your report about the key risks to being staff disruption or fatigue as relates to Waikato Waters. I'd also just give a heads up to the Risk and Assurance Committee members that I've been to a number of forums lately with the Department of Internal Affairs being there, and they did speak around Risk and Assurance Committees being across the transfer agreement and the conditions or the observations from the DIA in response to the Water Services Delivery Plan. So I'm just a heads up if that's something that we should keep out later.
So the transfer agreement, we've only got drafts. We're not into the stage of negotiating, but that'll come back through this committee as well as the main council.
And also, just a comment based on the line of questioning that Councillor Bruce had is, I think as a committee we need to think about our risk appetite for legislative breach. Currently, it sits on our top risk schedule as being an appetite of low, but I think we're somewhere in terms of current rating around medium or high. So it's just something that we need to be cognizant of. So as an example, Manaya, in your report, you say council have never complied with Te Aroha water tank for those 8 to 19 properties. That's both a breach of consent as well as a breach of legislation, like e.g. the Health Act.
No, it's not a breach of the Health Act because we issued the boil water notice. What it is our water tank here in Te Aroha, so that's our regional council consent. Just to give a bit of context on that, my team are confident that we'll get a variation on that because there's only 9 to 13 houses affected, very low draw off. So the team are confident we'll get a variation. And the regional council is very familiar with that. What I will give credit to our team, by the way, if I can, last year we were supposed to turn off that supply to town when the river gets to a certain height. We're supposed to turn off the mountain streams and just take from the river. We've not actually done that in the past. This last year, the team designed they moved a new inlet for our pump so it could move to mid-river and take water from there so that we could turn off most of the town from those streams. Now, they did that off their own bat. They were very focused on the consent compliance and they let the regional council know. So for me, it was a reflection of how the culture and the determination to ensure compliance was alive. We're not perfect, but that was a really good sign of what our team are doing.
Comment on that, so I've seen this before too, and like sitting around the table, and in particular, these regulators are coming up with their theories and rules and regulations around how things should be, but sometimes in practice it's not actual practical. And like when there is a need for water, especially for human consumption, then I'm not concerned about you've got to shut off the supply to a stream, for the sake of that being one of their regulations, because human health outweighs that in my mind. And we've seen it before with Lawrenceville, where a stream that was dry in summer, no water going down it, we still had to put water down it, over the spillway sort of thing. So who do we address these concerns to?
So I would say that one of the reasons why we're fine with what we did last year is because the regional council do understand of human consumption. What is the alternative for those properties? So I think that's why they've been tolerant. Also in the stream that you're talking about in Morrinsville, for example, they have in the past been tolerant too when we've got to pretty extreme circumstances in terms of the level of our dam. Now we've mitigated that to a huge extent with our Lockerbie plant, which is what the regional council wanted to see, is that we are spreading, we have resilience. But what I would say that it's my observation that when it comes to, human health and well-being, they certainly have been, that's my experience, they've been tolerant of that.
Just for clarification, because I did read that on the Tiara water intake. So we can't take water from the streams when the Waihau, but we put when it's below 24 cubics, but we can put a floating thing out. Is that because the flow should still be the same, shouldn't it? Or is it? It's just a practical thing that you may not be able to answer.
It's just that where the intake is permanently, it's not sufficient to be able to get
If it went out further,
we can get the draw.
Thanks, Jim. A robust debate there, and thank you for confirming that it's a breach of resource consent versus legislation. But I do think we need to keep that in mind when we're looking at the legislative compliance top risk, to what extent we feel that consent should fall somewhere within that as well, considering a lot of those things end up being front page news. But I will again say thank you to you, Manaya, and also thank you for front-footing what you had stated in your report on page 18, saying we might not have enough resources or capacity to give council the right guidance in relation to the pace of legislative reform coming out of central government. So thank you for recognising that. The recommendation in front of us is that we received the report. I'm happy to move. Could I please have a second down and get me dash seconding? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, none are carried. Kilda. The next item on the agenda is, I'm not sure if they're in the room, 8 management top by risk from Matamata wastewater treatment plant upgrade, and then the stadium, and then the playground. And while we're waiting for the team to write, Ken, did you note the point about considering resource consent as well as strictly legislative compliance when we do the top risk deep dive?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Welcome, team. Hopefully, we have people enough today. It'd be great if we could have a brief overview of the report, which we'll take with me, and we'll open the questions or comments from risk assurance.
No worries. So also just per project, is okay? Or do you want an overall
I think
update?
it'd be great to have it per project.
I think everybody knows, I think of the councillors and know Brett McIntyre, our project manager, for the vet out on site. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So look different without hard people.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
And of course, Rachel, who's in charge of our whole project management framework.
So for a Matamata-Piako treatment plant perspective, our risks haven't actually moved a lot since last time we reported on them, and that's because we're probably in a relatively stable place with the consent project, in terms of we're tracking through construction, and at this stage with the nice weather outside, our construction is going pretty well. So we're not looking at a position where we've got extensions of time or weather claims coming our way. So everything's kind of tracking along well on site in terms of getting this project done. And if summer stays like this, it'll be looking pretty good by the end of the construction season, hopefully. So if you are comparing it to our previous report, you'll notice that there hasn't been a lot change or move. And so it's looking very similar. Happy to take any questions around any of the specific risks. I understand from Suze that there's been some questions around the wastewater standards, so also happy to answer any of those. I don't have a great handle on it, but I've got a bit of an idea of where some of it's sitting in terms of our consent application we had, so I can give an update on that if you wish.
Yeah, the question was really stemmed from within the report. It talks about a decision about which wastewater standards were going to be followed. So I think clarity was provided by Benai, but happy to receive contact.
Just check that my clarity is right. My understanding is that our plant is designed to be able to meet the standards, either the new ones or what we would expect out of our resource consent. So the decision made on the design was appropriate.
Yeah, so the final standards came out about a week ago, 10 days ago. They're actually slightly more stringent for ammoniacal nitrogen for the Matamata wastewater treatment plant. So the standards, as I said, are more stringent and have got slightly more stringent in this final version than they were to compare to what our consent application was. The big change, though, as you said about other treatment plants, so previously you would have seen a savings for Te Aroha if you'd gone with the standards versus our consent. But now with the new standards, they have lowered the low dilution rate, and Morrinsville would now be brought in and require an upgrade if you were to go with the standards, where it didn't require as big a one. We've got PDP doing some information, so we've got more on that. But the proposal to the executive team a couple of weeks ago was to remain on hold with your consent application and leave it for Waikato Waters to make a more holistic, strategic view on what they are doing with the various treatment plants that will need to be upgraded in the coming short term.
So what's the new nitrate levels we've got a spot?
I don't have the numbers in front of me. I just know the height. They are strong. They are more stringent than what they were for the draft version.
This is coming out of Tamarara.
Yeah. So the final versions, which are now legal law, are more stringent than what the draft ones were.
What does that do for the budget?
Nothing. For the stage, we'll continue to build on the consent conditions that we had put in as a proposed one. It will meet that. The treatment plants still should meet the more stringent ones as well. It just means there's not as much flexibility from an operation perspective to be able to have it move up and down. The team, when they're operating it, if you were to go with the standards, will need to be just a lot more controlled in terms of making sure that all their maintenance is done on time and that they don't let membranes not run their clean cycle. So yeah, the plant should still meet it. It still fits within what would be design parameters. It's just tighter in terms of the operation. Yeah.
One of the risks was the insufficient power supply. Is so. How's that tracking?
Yeah, so we met up site with North Power about a month ago now, and we are needing to lock in when they'll be coming in the new year. I still don't have a confirmed date from them on when they're coming, despite multiple emails and contacts.
So, are you getting uncomfortable?
Not at this stage. We're not ready for them to install either. We need to commit. So
I wouldn't worry. I'll get it into it.
Yeah, we need about to have it set up so that they can connect into the MCC building, which we don't have ready yet. So yeah, not worried at this stage, but something to keep moving forward. And yeah, good. We started it early, like the mitigation stage, but it is taking some time to get locked in.
Yeah, just obviously also around budget cost, because this is gone out a lot further than what we thought, but just around the revised budget, reduced contingency sum, but this will be closely managed. So what have we got the contingency there? And do you think that it's enough?
Yep, the contingent we have been using contingency as a expect. Some of it is a measure and value contract, but nothing that you wouldn't. That was outside. We're still pretty comfortable in terms of how that is tracking. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but we are holding a percentage of contingency both within the contract and within the overall project, and both of that is tracking well. There hasn't been anything that suggests we'll go outside of that this time.
Sorry, just a wager.
Oh, yes, I've heard. I just asked Manoa which way he was going, was he?
Any further questions in relation to the wastewater treatment plant upgrade? Otherwise, we will move on to the stadium.
I suppose the only other concern from there was the environmental, the bioreactor foam. So have you developed a process in order to reduce or eliminate that?
There isn't a lot you can do. It's just part of the process of turning on a treatment plant and adding new bugs. Yeah, it's a matter of having your comms ready if it happens. Yep, there's not a lot you can do. Yep.
Perception assurance machine.
Yep. Yeah, it's just one of those as a known thing that can happen during commissioning. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. It completely comes down to the bugs, and there's not a lot you can do. It's just a part of setting up that process and getting that working. But yeah, we'll just have the comms ready should it start happening.
Spraying the stuff.
Yeah, we'll definitely be spraying it down. You'll do all of that, but if it gets to a point you can't stop the process. You've got to keep it going. So it's just one of those known risks that you can have when starting a bioreactor.
I think Westleys are disclosed on farmland.
Yeah, we're probably lucky relatively surrounded by farmland, but yeah.
Thanks, Tim. I think we've exhausted our questions for now. Will you be doing the next?
Next time we do an update. 6 months.
6 months.
Okay. And I'm happy if we could move on to the Matamata Stadium now. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Yeah, that was good.
Thanks, Marie.
No worries.
Oh, Chris.
Hey, how you going?
I'm terrible with names, so it's good to help me out. So welcome.
That's good.
Yeah, happy for a brief overview. We'll take the report as read and more if there's questions or comments.
Cool. Stadium's tracking well. With the risks have changed a little bit from last time we caught up. On-site risks, health and safety risks, that type of stuff. The building itself is due to be completed by Christmas, and then across that January, February period, we'll do the car parking and driveway and all that. That's already underway at the moment. So yeah, the rest of it come along with that.
Any comments or questions from the team?
Just that it's looking great. Awesome. Good to see. Well,
It looks good.
That was a good one.
Chris, will we also see you in 6 months? Sorry.
It'll be open by then.
Yeah, we'll be. So yeah, due to open, I think the community day is 23rd of February, which is a Saturday. So we'll look to do a bit of a thing in the morning, and then the community will come in and there'll be games and stuff like that. So we should be open that following Monday for use.
Awesome. And then in terms of project completion, do you yourself come as a project manager back to the committee or to council and kind of give an overview of lessons learned from that particular project that could be useful for other projects for the council?
Sounds like a good idea. I hadn't considered it, but yeah, I think that sounds good. If it's
Yeah, we're currently trying to put together a bit of a repository of learning. So then anyone, especially the project managers, can go to certain projects and go, you know, what did work well, what hasn't worked so well, so help them going forward. But that's still work in progress.
Excellent. Well, if there are no further questions, Chris, good luck for the next few months and opening day, and well done. Okay, fine. Sorry, I think you're also going to do the report on the playground as well.
So you're going to say good luck for the Matamata domain report. Yeah, this one's a bit different. So we have gone out to tender for this one for the surfacing and landscaping in that aspect of the work. We had 3 tenders come back, all 3 were non-conforming. So we've gone through that process, and now we had a meeting yesterday about what the next steps forward are, and subject to a report going to the tender review board on Friday, we're looking likely to go back out to open market tender and try again with a slightly tweaked approach in terms of the way we're doing it, but also the way we're marking those tenders in terms of non-price attributes and price and things like that. In terms of the risks, they're very much the same as they were last time, because we're sort of a bit of a rinse and repeat type situation now.
Those tenders, were they non-conforming due to price or due to product quality and controls as well?
Due to the non-price attributes. So we evaluate the non-price attributes, and if they're non-conforming, then the prices don't get opened, and then we just let the tenderers know why. So it was all IFT requirements, things that we explicitly said, please provide this, and it was common what the things were that they hadn't provided. But down there, we're obviously right next to a school, and they use that field for lunches and games and all sorts. So we're a little conscious about the health and safety on that side of it, and the fencing and how they were going to manage all of that. And all 3 tenderers didn't supply a comprehensive safety plan. So there was templates, or there was just a mention of sun and noise and dust and things, but there was never any site-specific considerations made. So
Are you limited by the pool of providers?
yes, we are, and certainly the weighting for this tender will be more around relevant experience. It's important to get the right person in there to do the work. But yeah, the 3 tenders we got weren't who we were expecting was the experience that we wanted to get.
Oh, Councillor Brooks, you know you want to.
Did they just not realise what they were supposed to be providing in the process?
Not entirely sure. It was pretty explicitly stated you must provide a safety. What was our wording around essentially saying a very in-depth safety plan, and none of them provided that. So I don't know whether their in-depth and our in-depth was slightly different, and we probably will change the wording for that next stage. But
So will they be asked to, or invited to attend?
so it'll be an open market tender again. So they're welcome to try.
Okay, so they haven't discounted themselves in that.
And I would expect that there may be some learnings from that first stage. We did offer debriefs with all the when we sent out our letters, and we had 2 come back and request a debrief. So we've done those. The third one never came back to us. So they may have some learnings from those that they take into the next stage.
If there are no further questions or comments.
Just only one thing. I was just thinking, is the delay causing the price to go up? Is there going to be a budget blowout because of the 6-month, 12-month delay?
There's a chance here that inflation, but also hopefully the plan is we change the structure of this in a way that we get more people put in a price, and that way there's just more competition that comes through.
Would it be fair to say that's not our budget blown out? In terms of, because it's the, we've got our 1.5 and it's giving that's a 2.5 project, isn't it?
Yeah, so the trust, and don't quote me on these numbers, I think they've secured about $1.2 million worth of funding. So that puts us at 2.7. But yes, you're right. We're at 1.5. So if it were to change, and we've also added in that we can tweak it or we could stage it. The trust are very committed to fundraising as soon as they know those numbers, and that's why we need to get through this tender so we can say, hey, this is our price.
Yeah.
And if there is a shortfall, they've said they will work.
Yeah. So not being unfair to the trust, but the risk is theirs, not ours. In that regard, yeah.
Financial.
Yeah, in terms of that, in terms of budget. Yeah.
We don't have a set plan that we're trying to deliver for 1.5. We have a scheme plan that we're asking for tenders, but if that comes in above and beyond our budget, then we will tweak it to remove certain components to get us within that budget.
Sorry, so the recommendation is that we receive Mayor Ash's moving. Could I please have a seconder? Councillor Andrew seconding. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carry. Thank you. And again, good luck. Thank you. Yeah. I'll just make a quick comment in relation to projects and risk in general, is it would be good, especially for the new members, to think about what level of reporting that they would like to see, whether this hits the mark, and if it doesn't, what do you then? It would be really helpful feedback to give to the team. So we're not going to be asking the same questions again because it didn't come in the reporting that we could have highlighted sooner. So thank you in advance for thinking about what that could look like. My apologies, team. We have Audit New Zealand in the lobby, and it would be great to bring them in. So sorry, Rachel, if you're okay, and also potentially Sangita, if we move to item 8.5, which is the draft annual report. Any objections to changing? No? Okay, so we're going to move to 8.5. I'm guessing we'll see also Lania, Kelly, and Olivia. I think I've left them on that one. But welcome, team. Are you sure you've got enough seats? Just for the committee members' knowledge as well, if you have not met Renee she is the Audit Director from Audit New Zealand in charge of the audit of the annual report and other legislative documents for Matamata-Piako District Council. So she's joining us online. So thank you, Renee, for stepping away from another hui to join us today. But first things first, I'll hand over to the team to introduce, and then we can move to share comment from Renee and then comments and questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. I guess since we wrote this report for this meeting, things have changed again. At that stage, we were the annual report was progressing, the audit of the annual report was progressing, and we've been just alerted to the point that there was a prior period error that we needed to correct in relation to vested land. But then since then, there's been another matter come up that could potentially affect our timeline for adoption next week. So I don't know whether it's a good idea to get Renee to jump in here to discuss that.
Sure, Renee. I think I said your name wrong as well. It might be Renee on sale, but anyway, over to you. I'm not sure whether you've met all of the committee members in the room, but we have Mayor Ash, Deputy Mayor James, Councillor Bruce, Councillor Andrew, and also Councillor James. So welcome, and over to you. Kia ora.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone, through you, Madam Chair. Thanks for having me. Sorry I couldn't be there in person today. Hoping this online, this platform that we do use works well. So firstly, just thank you, management and this committee. Your assistance and support, obviously, without it, we cannot perform our public service, which is, the audit. I would have loved to stand here today with a bit of, more good news. We were hoping to be finished with the audit at this point. Unfortunately, we have encountered some challenges, and I'm sure you've been briefed on your end and through management. We have been in close contact with the management team and with Jadine as well as the chair of this committee, and we have been working through those challenges as best we could. But unfortunately, we're not in a position to clear at this point. As Lania mentioned, there is a material prior period error that was picked up in the land assets, and that is still being worked through. So that meant it's some additional testing for us, as well as approval from the Auditor General's office. Because it's a prior period error, and we did issue an audit opinion over the previous year, we do need to go through an approval process for that. I think the main thing that's been the challenge for us in trying to get this audit through is the PPE specifically at this point. So I just wanted to make it clear that it's a data issue. It's not an issue where we are saying there's a lot of errors or the numbers are incorrect. It is a question of the data being in a format that makes it auditable for us to use. We have been communicating the issues in the PPE data for a couple of rounds in terms of our reporting. So it has been, as management have been made aware, and this committee has been made aware that these challenges in auditing the data in the format that it is currently. So we would need a little bit more time to work through that, based both on our end, doing some more testing, but also on management side, to basically work through those data sets, and provide it in a way that we can close off our testing. There's also another option, and that is to go a qualification route. I'm sure that's been discussed already, or if you've got any questions in that regard, happy to answer.
I might just start with an opening comment in relation to your report, Renee, which is that this has been a moving beast, and I will recognise that there may be a number of Risk and Assurance Committee members that might not be up to date with the emails that were flying up until about 12 o'clock or lunchtime today. So just giving the context that I think the management team is aware, Mayor Ash is aware, and I'm aware, but and I apologise to the Risk and Assurance Committee members for maybe the lack of transparency in that space about what this looks like. So just giving context around the knowledge in the room. Lania, did you want to make further comments, or Olivia, or before we open for questions or comments from the committee?
I guess, do you want to
Sure. So just to be specific, we're talking about on the addendum, page 100 and I think it is 78, was it? It is called note 12. And it's a table on, I just wanted to point to it just to build on the point that Renee mentioned about what the issue is. So just to crystallize that. So I think it's 178, 174. Page 174 on your attachment. So in that table, we're talking about our process of capitalising assets during the year. So the physical works that we do. At the moment, that table shows that we capitalised $42.692 million worth of assets. The issue that we have is that we have not been able to produce information in the format that our auditors want to get the appropriate assurance from their perspective that that number is correct. So what are the potential implications of that? I'm extremely confident that that number, if it's not exact, will not vary very much through an audit process. I'm confident of that because I know what our capitalisation projects are. It is possible that what we've got in that 42.692 million is some expenditure which could be operating rather than capital. That's a possibility. But in the scale of our operation, it will be minor. But I understand the need that audit have. And so the issue I raised when it came up last year was, and I reflected on what we were needing to do to achieve that satisfaction, was being very confident that the statements or financial statements are not materially affected, but also respecting the needs of the auditors. I raised the question of getting a qualified opinion. And I want to explain why. And the qualified opinion, just checking in with members what they know what that is. We normally get, I think in my whole time in local government doing accounts, I think I may have had 2 qualified opinions in my time. When I mentioned it in the room with my colleagues, there was horror on their face because it is intuitive of financial people not to get qualifications. However, what I reflected on over the weekend was what is in front of our team, what they're dealing with, and what we're needing to get done early next year in terms of our annual plan and our auditors, and the prospect of additional audit costs that will hit us from this process, let alone the additional work we might do to deliver something that will satisfy our auditors. I am confident that we can deliver something that will satisfy our auditors. I just don't think we can do that in a time frame for a reasonable period of adoption of this annual report. And my preference would be for us to work through this process to make sure we don't come across it again for this year's audit. I know there have been questions going backwards between our team and our auditors about what's changed. Why are we having this issue? And I'm not putting any blame anywhere. All I would say is our process has not changed. In fact, if anything, it's got better, but it's not delivering on what our auditors want, so we have to change something. And as I say, given what we have in front of us, I believe that we should take a qualified opinion, the nature of which I would ask one of the team to describe. But I just feel that it's the size of the issue and the implications of the issue are just not worth incurring lots of audit fees for. Just saying.
Thanks, Renee. Can I just ask a question of clarity to either yourself or to Renee? And Renee, I will come to you about the qualification that relates only to this PPE matter, and Audit New Zealand is comfortable with the residual part of the annual report.
That's my understanding.
Sorry, Renee, you had your hand up.
Yes, I actually, thanks, Madam Chair. I wanted to respond to Manaya, but on the audit opinion or the audit qualification, that will have to go through a a scrutiny process by the Auditor General as well. So as far as my expectation is that it will be a limitation of scope qualification. So it will just say, it's not saying that the numbers are wrong. And maybe there I can segue into just responding to Manaya. So it's the format that we need this data in is basically set to allow us to do our audit testing so that we can assure those numbers. So as soon as if you look at that table that Manaya was talking about, which is the note 12, if you look at one of the columns, for example, the current year's additions, if we don't have the data in a format where we can see exactly what transactions is making up the 42 million, it's very hard for us to gain assurance over that number to say yes, it's correct. So and that's why I say it's very much a data driven issue that we have. So what we will do if management decide and this committee and council decides that they want to go the qualification route, we will definitely go in with the proposal to have it as a limitation of scope, which just means that we couldn't perform our audit testing to satisfaction to say that that 42 million is actually correct. We're not saying that it's incorrect. But just caveat that in terms of it will go to a committee and that committee will scrutinize the whole process. And at this point, I cannot give any assurances of what will come out of that process.
And just on that, Renee, you couldn't give assurance on what their timing would look like neither, i.e. whether there would be any type of response prior to the council meeting on the 17th of December?
I will do my utmost best, if that is the decision today, to try and get it through as quickly as possible. But I am at the mercy of, a couple of people that need to, we need to prepare a paper, they need to have time to look at it, and we need to convene in a room together to discuss. So it's hard to say, but I will do my utmost best to do that, if that's the decision.
Okay, any comments or questions? Welcome to the newbies that walked into this.
What do you think the additional charges from audit would be carrying on the track that you're going down at the moment?
It's also really hard to say because it's time-based. So my suggestion would be that we have a relook and try and get those data sets as a complete set based on the latest PPE note, which is this note 12, make sure everything balanced, and then run our testing through that again. It's really hard to put a number to it, but I can do a little bit of a estimation for you if you want that, Mayor Ash.
Yeah, it would be handy. Thank you.
So Renee, so the best land interest isn't under scrutiny anymore, it's the PPE issue, is it? So if the limitation of scope was done solely on that, would it be able to be put through and would it provide any sort of prejudice going forward for further audits?
That's a really good question. So we would be at risk in the 2026 audit to have a repeat of this because we're going to have our opening balances are basically under risk. The good thing is that we have done, or council have done revaluations this year. So we are comfortable with our closing balances, apart now from some of the, the prior period error that we got, that we identified in land is complicating matters a little bit again. But there's some additional work we can do next year, given that this process is, we've got better auditable information. There's some additional work we can do to try and cover the opening balances so that we do not need the qualification going forward. So it's definitely a possibility, but there will be risk for your next year as well.
I just want to clarify, that's why I would continue to work on this issue over the leading up to the next audit, because we want to clear it for the next audit and we'll be faced with the same issue next year. So understanding what data is required by audit now, Peter, and then shaping our data to fill into that. So it doesn't stop with the qualification, we keep working on it.
I guess a couple of points of clarification, both in terms of governance, but also some questions there. So the first one is like, can the committee today recommend either way and that fits, or does that need to go back to the council?
Ultimately, my view is that we can express an opinion as a committee. Ultimately, this decision rests with the council. No.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I will be saying to council is, I don't have the resource to do it in the time frame to get a reasonable adoption of an annual report, because I'll be doing an annual plan in the middle of it.
Oh yeah, I beg your pardon. I was more meaning if we go with if the recommendation is qualified, that work would be done between now and the 17th, so that something could be adopted on the 17th, right?
Provided we get the form of the qualification from audit within that time.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But in terms of like this committee saying go for that one, we have the power to do that.
I actually don't. I don't actually think I need your power.
Yeah,
it's more that this is issue of assurance around the report or lack of.
Yep.
And whether your committee has a view on that as such.
Right. Okay, so my second question, I guess, really builds on Andrew's question, Councillor McGivern's question about so there would be, assuming we went for qualified, there'd be two pieces of work that would need to be done so that we're clean for next year. Straight for next year. Number one is sorting out that the data is formatted in a way that complies with what they want. Would there also be a bit of a tidy up to make sure that whatever is in the annual report this year is appropriate, is an appropriate starting point for whatever audit does? In the same way that there had to be a retrospective tidy up from a previous thing, will that exist if we go with a qualified opinion on this one?
Yeah, I think that's what Renee was.
Yeah, that's my understanding, and confident that that can be done. It's quite a bit of work, but
well, I think we have to solve. I mean, look, I know we can solve.
So I appreciate that we need to solve the things cause the problem now. Understand that's happening. That will need to happen no matter what. But it's also that retrospective sort out as well. It's also just sitting there, and that will still be sitting there. Right. I guess I want to.
So that's good. I think we need to unpack what the amount of work required for each of the options, and neither is a small amount of work, and one is potentially only slightly more appealing than the other. That's what it is.
So what's different with the lack of data compared to previous years? What can't you accept this year? Have we done something different, or has there been a change in what you require?
Yeah, that's also a really good question. So through Madam Chair, I think this issue that's coming the past couple of years and that's been raised these past years has compounded. So last year, for just one of the factors in play here is last year we did identify quite a number of assets that should have been capitalized that wasn't. So it was done on what's now referred to on a paper basis. And now we're trying to unwind that in a data set where we don't have the transactions, where we can, for example, just using the 42 million again as an example, we don't have a transaction list where we can sample from. We've got it at a higher aggregate level, and now you've got these paper capitalizations that's coming in that we need to try and work into the data set. It doesn't at an overall level, we are not able to reconcile the whole picture back to transactional data this year, and it's been compounded. The prior period error is also in play here, because it's that together with all the issues that we've been facing in the past couple of rounds means that our audit risk are increasing all the time. We get more worried about errors that might be in the system, and that's now come to a point where, for this year, the whole puzzle it's not fitting together in a way that I can basically sign it off and say we've assured that 42 million as an example.
Can I just check, Renee, do you understand you've got a new tool you've been using this year? Is that this year or last year?
Last year. It doesn't have an impact on our audit methodology. Audit methodology comes from the auditing standards as well as the Auditor General standards, so that would not have any impact.
We have a lineup, so we'll go Councillor Andrew, Deputy Mayor James, and then Councillor Bruce.
Yeah, what's the cost of a qualified opinion? And then the supplementary question is, what's the cost opportunity, reputational and financial wise, if we don't meet our timeline on 7th of December? Do we get kickback from Audit NZ or the Auditor General or penalty?
I can report on the second issue.
Passing the
Report on the second issue. 22 local authorities got qualified auditors last year, 20 the year before. There is and we will probably get reported in Parliament. I think we may have twice before in my time, because the Auditor General typically reports on who's had a qualified audit opinion. So what is that impact reputationally? To be honest, I think it's not nil. I mean, anybody can make anything of anything. But I've 22 local authorities last year, and I looked at the names of them. Some quite close to us. And I'm not, look, I don't instinctively, intuitively, I don't like qualifications. Team don't like qualifications. It's a question of the point about audit fees. I don't want to be arguing about why are you doing this? Why are we still doing it? I don't. Whatever number Renee puts down, she can't guarantee because we're going through a process. And I worry about the size of that bill at the end of the process.
Is there a financial penalty for not?
No.
And we had already missed the statutory deadline, which was end of October.
Oh,
so you were
so
already.
we're all going to be reported now.
Yeah.
Well, the previous. Yes.
Yeah, we're all on team.
So just checking, Renee, you had your hand up. You're comfortable that that response was okay? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, I'll let Bruce go. Was like this. Yeah.
Given Manai's statement that we've got far more, so much more work ahead of us on everything else, right? That I don't think we can afford to muck around. We do a qualified, and we get on with it, and we on it. And I would support that fully if I knew that between now and next financial year, the system is sorted so we know that we're doing it on the right process.
Yeah, I was going to basically echo that and articulate a recommendation if we're ready for that, which I agree. I was just quickly looking at the qualified opinions on Google as you're saying that, and so it was 23 was reported. So although it's very unusual for us in terms of the industry, it happens. Yeah, that was also my understanding of the risks as well. So very reassuring to hear that. And I think probably the one for us is really going to be amongst the community as well. So I would imagine that was the avenue that we went down. The comms would be very important to capture, including the nuance that Renee specified, which she'll be aiming for. I appreciate there's no guarantee on that, but that does matter. So and then there's the cost of additional auditing and so on and so forth, but it's also as much as anything, it's the time and the workflow and all of that. That's perhaps my bigger concern. So shall I articulate a recommendation, Madam Chair, or should we let it?
I'm happy for that. It would be good because I know that Kelly and Ken have been doing some work in terms of what a qualification looks like. Just checking whether you guys wanted to speak to that. Otherwise, we'll go to Deputy Mayor James' resolution.
So, thank you. Yeah, look, I think Renee pretty much touched on it before, Chair and committee. So yeah, very much talking about a limitation in scope.
So that's just, the scope of the audit was limited, which means that it could not be determined if there is potentially a misstatement in the numbers. So Renee, I can't remember your exact words before, Renee, but they were good. You're certainly not saying there is an error or there is a misstatement, just that there is a possibility, and the scope of the audit was limited in that regard. In that situation, I'm looking at a decision-making tree that was produced by the Office of the Auditor General a few years ago, Renee, in about 2013. But I think it would still be relevant. I guess there's two levels to that in terms of that limitation and scope. Two levels in regard to to how big a potential misstatement could be. And in one case, it's that that it's actually pervasive to understanding the financial information, in which case the opinion would be a disclaimer of opinion. The other option is that it's determined that it's not going to be pervasive to the understanding of the whole financial statements, but there is obviously risk of a material, something material to the reader's understanding, in which case it's a qualified opinion. Now, I'd be seriously hoping that we would be in the latter of those, so it would be a qualified opinion rather than a disclaimer of opinion. But as Renee, and as we've seen Renee nodding ahead there, which is giving me a bit of assurance, that obviously does need testing with the opinion review committee of the Auditor General's office, as Renee set out before. But like I say, I would be envisaging would be in that qualified opinion territory. Yeah.
Thanks, Jane. We have a question from Jane.
Yeah, I was just firstly backing up what Bruce was saying before, but when you're talking about the 22 councils and the 20 councils, how many of them were the same councils?
I actually never looked at that. I just was surprised. No, I didn't actually look at that.
Okay, yeah, just wondering, because
yes,
we're talking about, okay, we take this and learn from it and carry on, but I was just wondering how many of those didn't do that. But that's right. That was just curious.
Two things before we go to the motion. I have asked Malaya earlier, which I'm not looking for a response now, to help us as the Risk and Assurance Committee understand what the internal controls are to prevent things like this happening. And so how do we get to, not just verbally, but in some other way, kick the tires on those controls so that we can get assurance that they are in place and operating. And I think that this is an example of they're in place, potentially, but not operating to the extent that we might need to. So I'm just flagging that I'd like us to explore that, especially on things that could result in something like this. And I'm also quite keen to hear from Mayor Ash in terms of his perspective on this. I will say from my perspective, I am uncomfortable with my chartered accountant background, recommending, I think I had a similar reaction. I can't repeat that look on your face, Minai, but I had that reaction on my face when we had this audit all the first time. I can see people with finance backgrounds having a similar view. So it does make me uncomfortable, but I am recognising the amount of work that will need to go into this process to get things across the line. But I'm also weighing up the amount of work that needs to go into this process to get us to a strong starting position for the next financial year. So I'm trying to weigh those two things up at the moment. So I'm looking forward to Mayor Ash's comment and then also the resolution.
So I guess, we're in this position now, and then it's something that we have to address. It's something we have to move on from. So whichever way we go, we just need to deal with it. But also, I don't want to be having the same conversation at the end of next year. So we need to obviously address what order to look for in the process going forward, so that we don't. Yeah, I hate to think we're going to keep repeating this and get put in the same position again.
Malaya, can you speak to that, please, around this being a one-off?
We need to, we have better clarity of what our auditors want for their annual report going forward for this area. I'm confident that we will be able to do that. I want to use the time that we have for the next audit for the team to work out how we make that efficient. So that will deal with the retrospective issue, but also put us on the right foot going forward. So we can't, it doesn't stop here. It just means that's where we divide it. That's how we apply our resources. I 100% agree. We should be in this. I've never been in this position before. But the other qualifications are about performance measures. I remember anyway, which is another killer fish. But anyway, look, the whole team. This is a very uncomfortable position for us. I got to qualify that by saying I have confidence in that 42 million. So I don't want to spend a lot of money coming back to proving the 42 million when I have confidence in it. So you rightly expect me to resolve this issue for next year. I accept that. I do, to the point that the chair has mentioned about assurance. I do have a plan for that assurance for the specific area for next year.
And I'd just like to say I have confidence that you have confidence in it.
Would we expect to have regular reporting to this committee in the lead up to the next audit? Specifically in terms of the plan that you have?
Absolutely.
Over to you. Just
one more comment, sorry, Madam Chair. I was sort of thinking we're probably in this position and this is a new board perspective, sorry. We're in this position because it's a limited scope audit and Renee and her team probably didn't get the full range of information they needed to make the decision. Is that correct in the audit? So going forward, maybe the limited scope audit is not, we need to open the scope a little bit more, obviously, so that information is a bit more free flowing. Because if everything in a silo, it's hard to pull out sometimes. That's just my perspective. But qualified opinion, I don't think it's the end of the world. This is going to be a band-aid. Put on the open saw to rectify the process, pull it off, and get it sorted for next year, and away we go. So that's just my non-financial hat on. So
thank you. I think I know what Renee's going to say. So Renee.
Thank you. Yes, that's also a nice segue for me. In terms of the, what we were just saying, just want to put just the last little bit of emphasis on the systems in play here. Because for the fixed assets and the PPE, council is using Asset Finder RAM and the Authority FMIS system, but all of them, and then a lot of Excel spreadsheets as well. So just in terms of getting data to a point where we can, you can see transactions underlying, these totals that's presented in the disclosure is a system, there's a lot of focus on the systems that's being used and the way that they are being used that will be helpful in this discussion going forward, and we would love to be really close to management as they work through this year, when they are working on this, to just work with them and see where we can assist.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. So sorry, Chair. I just thought sorry because I know you're going to potentially a resolution in a moment. But Renee, I just thought in full transparency. So late this afternoon, you and I and a member of the finance team had some discussions about a potential piece of work that might be able to potentially deliver up some schedules of a nature that might work for you over the next couple of days. Now there could be a couple of days of work. Do you think? I guess I'm sure this is a question for Renee as the auditor. Do you think it's still worthwhile just testing that, or is that just a little bit of a glimmer of hope that really is not worth pursuing in the context of the discussion that's happened today? Because if we think it's only a glimmer of hope, because it really picks up mainly on the waters. It doesn't really offer a solution in that roving space. So should we potentially abandon that if it's the committee's wish today? I just felt we should just note that before a decision's made.
Yes, now, Ken, I agree. That was, us trying to grab at some straws, and that was only for the waters parts and not for roading and everything else. And obviously, I haven't seen that yet. So that might be a solution for waters, but that just still leaves the other, especially roading, which is on an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification, Renee. I think that's really important.
You know, like we might have reached a point where we could put resolution. So, Deputy Meeting, would you like to offer one?
Certainly. Yeah, so my recommendation would be that the information including the draft annual report and annual report summary 2025 and Audit New Zealand updates received, and the committee provides feedback by way of advancing a qualified opinion in preparation with the goal of adopting the annual report on December 17th if possible. And it probably doesn't need to be in the resolution, but just acknowledging all of the discussion, the concerns around the qualified report, the huge amount of work that's been put into it, the support from audit and trying to look for solutions. I guess ultimately I'm comfortable with this for two reasons. Number one is the idea that we need to move forward and the reassurance that it will be resolved, but also that this has come about by stuff that's been reported over time consistently. It's just a different way of looking at it. So it's rather that than something being different in terms of how we do stuff. So.
Thank you very much for that. Steph is going to put the resolution or recommendation up on the screen so as to see. I'm sure it's typing furiously. But
no worries. The committee, I don't know. I would just say the committee recommends a qualified opinion with a view of qualified audit opinion in order to adopt the annual report as soon as possible. And then
As soon as possible.
Basically, as soon as practical. As soon as practical, that's a much nicer way of saying it.
Thank you for that one.
I'm quite keen to include where it states qualified audit opinion, limitation of scope. That wording, so we're being specific.
Is that within our control? No? Anyway, I'm fine with that. But
Be the review committee.
yeah.
Yes.
That's what Renee can put forward.
Can you see whether that qualified opinion limited, which that aligns to the report that you gave earlier, or the comment you gave earlier?
Yes, it is. We were talking in the context of a qualified audit opinion, but Chair JD, I don't think it would hurt to put in brackets behind that, and I think this is what you're looking for, limitation of scope. Unless there's a violent objection from Renee, because but I mean that would have to be determined obviously by the Office of the Auditor General ultimately, but I think it's appropriate that this committee is recommending that they see that as an option. I mean, I guess if the Office of the Auditor General came back with something significantly different from that, this council would have to have another discussion. And in fact, the council would have to have a discussion anyway. This is simply a recommendation through to council, and to the Risk and Assurance Committee are saying they would be happy in the space of a limitation of scope.
Yeah, so maybe it's the council recommends accepting a qualified audit opinion limitation of scope in order to adopt. Yeah. That's more appropriate.
Yes, they take a action. That would be more appropriate.
Limitation in scope, Steph. Just change that to in.
Sorry, Steph. Sorry.
It's of. Sorry, the of is correct.
Okay. Yeah.
So the committee recommends council.
To accept.
So we've got 2 points. One is Deputy Mayor James. I think they were trying to say that we should make a recommendation to council.
Oh no, I think that we should. I think that the council recommends accepting a qualified audit opinion, limitation of scope in order to adopt the annual report for 2024-25 as soon as practicable. My understanding is that Mania, there's actually a decision that Mania would make. Yes, so.
Oh, okay.
So recommends, yeah, delete the two councils, yes. So the committee recommends accepting a qualified audit opinion limitation of scope in order to adopt the annual report for 2024-25 as soon as practical.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, Niall, you said something.
Useful to note the area that limitation of scope relates to.
The opinion will, yes, will state that.
But in relation to this recommendation, so yes.
So the committee can consider whether they want to also add to limitation of scope in relation to PPE. To be very clear about what we're accepting and what we're not. Ever comfort?
Yes, let's do that.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Mel. I was going there. I appreciate you. Yeah. All right, team. I'll give you 30 seconds to have a look, and then we're gonna vote. Just checking because I think you need. This is. I would say that in my career, this is the first time I'm doing this, so I think any comments needs to be put. So over to you, Councillor Root.
No, I'll refrain. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
We should be practical, practical.
But that's just one good thing. That's what you're working.
Cable.
Right. Change. CAB.
By cable.
I
Yeah.
There we go.
Chair, I'm just wondering if I'm not sure the PPE acronym would be well known. So it's probably for the restoration of people, property, plant, and equipment. Yeah, if we can just change it to property, plant, and equipment.
I feel like this is the Pixie Caramel moment.
Yeah.
Sorry for all you young people that don't understand that. I apologize.
Sorry.
Property, and equipment. What I would like to say is, Deputy James, thank you for leading on this, and thank you for everyone for their input. We have a recommendation in front of us. I'm going to ask whether we have to move that in a second. Deputy James is moving. We've got Councillor Andrew seconding. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against, please call. No, okay. Cool, mother carried. So, yeah, I will say, echo the comments of Deputy James. I know there's a lot of work that went into that team. We appreciate you trying to get this across the line. It just wasn't our time this time around, and we look forward to all the work that needs to come to get us in a good step for the next. So thank you. And I'd also like to thank Renee and her team, because not only was our team doing a lot of work, they were doing a lot of work too. And thank you, Renee, for taking this through to the ORC, I think it's called, Opinions Review Committee, and hoping we can get this across the line in that space as well. And I guess the team looks forward to you coming to the council meeting on the 17th of December to give us an update then too. Well, thank you, Renee, for joining us. Do you have any final comments? Otherwise, we're going to close this one.
Nothing further from me. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Renee, and good luck. And so thank you, team.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Hang of their team. We've got exciting things coming up on the agenda. Yes, we do. So we'll go with 8.8. Sorry, no, that's wrong. We'll go to 8.5. We'll go to 8.5. I think Sangeeta is gone, so we'll go to 8.4. Is Rachel here? Oh, yes. Yeah. No, Michael, here on Rachel. Welcome back. Sorry for the delay. You might be aware that we might want a brief update and then we'll open for comments and questions.
So all of our project management stuff is going reasonably well at the moment. So I'm pretty confident that our targets that were set at the beginning of the year, they won't be 100%, but I'm pretty confident that they'll land about the 80% mark, the completion of where we thought we were going to be. And the majority of that's just been delays in our planning, and just figuring out what it is that we're going to do. So our scope of works, we know that that's an improvement, and we have worked on that quite a bit. We've cleaned up a lot of old projects, so we're having to get those all done and dusted, finished off. So yeah, overall, we're getting there. We're improving slowly but surely. We're improving.
For questions and comments.
Sorry, Rachel, I see you've got 16 million allocated, we've only spent 1.1 so far. Is that just a timing issue at the moment?
Yeah. And for the actuals that are reported on this, they're also a month behind. So because our payments start the 20th of the next month. So, you know, so the financials and all of this reporting is a month behind.
Cool. Okay, thank you.
Any further comments or questions from the team? My one was just, could you remind us on the definition of a project? And I'm leading into a question of whether something like the annual report would fit within the scope of this reporting. And similarly, something like the water services delivery plan, whether that would also sit within this type of reporting. Thanks.
Yeah, so something that is unique, has a definite start and end date, has a unique set of objectives that we want to achieve. So we did start off with having the annual plan as a project and the LTP as a project, but we found that because this is done, the reporting is done retrospectively, so we don't have current system where it's real-time data, that wasn't fast enough for the teams to be going to council, the things to be going to the councillors for their meetings and keeping them up to date. It was fun by the time I put it together and got it in front of each team or council. It was, you know, it was just lagging in time, not quick enough. So we, our governance, country council, bring all those decisions. As they need to.
And then the water services delivery plan.
That was run as a project, and then we moved that as part of the Waikato Water. But
any comments or further comments or questions from the team? Otherwise, the recommendation in front of us, I imagine, will be to receive the report, which I'm happy to move. Please have Asha seconding. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you, Rachel. Sorry for the delay. Is Kate in the room? I'm recognising that she also needs to let know. We will go to item 8.8, which is the procurement report. Unfortunately, Sangeeta had to go and catch a plane. So we have Claudia that's going to field any difficult questions from the committee.
Right, so part of Sangeeta's role, Sangeeta's our procurement specialist, and part of her role, aside from giving helping advice and help to our staff that are doing the procurement, is to actually go back and monitor how we've gone against the policies and stuff we've got in place. So this is her report for the last half of last financial year, which was supposed to come at an earlier meeting, but Sangeeta was on bereavement leave. So yeah, so this is coming to you now. But yeah, I guess basically there wasn't any showstoppers in amongst the findings from her review work this time around. So yeah, happy to answer any questions you have.
23% improvement to 97%.
So yeah, that's just comparing our how we and her review she did for the same period last year to this time. So yeah, so we've
But there's been a significant improvement.
yes.
Lovely. I'm not sure if you have the answer, but I'll ask anyway. It was in the report, page 88, that talks about that we have legal service providers that don't meet the criteria for secondary procurement. Nevertheless, we've included them in our list because of long-term relationship. Does that align to our procurement policy and procurement manual?
Yes, so Siglita gave me a heads up on that one, and yes, she said it does.
Thank you for clarifying. Any further questions or comments from the team? Otherwise, I am moving that we receive this report. Can I please have a seconder? And we have Deputy Mayor James seconding. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, complaint carried. Thank you. You did a great job stepping in. Right, team, we are on to Kim, are you okay to do the 8.7 risk update?
Yes, I can.
Thanks.
Yeah. Is this one first? Oh, Councillor talked to
They've just walked in the room. So apologies, team. We're going to move to 8.9, the safety and wellness report, because our team needs to leave. So
Thank you.
Good to see you both again. As per usual, a brief overview, and then we'll open for comments and questions. Go ahead.
Perfect. So in the report, it was mentioned about the IOD assessment. I think that's a really big highlight for us with the work that we've done with that. There has been quite a few, I guess, actions underway with that assessment, and we feel like even with the check and adjust that we've done from a safety awareness point of view, that we are heading in the right direction. And there's some good practice happening out there with the work that's being done. There has been some examples that we can, I guess, highlight and speak to that shows that we are consistent with that IOD assessment and reaching those targets. And an example would be that the GMs are regularly meeting with the health and safety reps, so really putting through on that engagement piece. And also that every executive team meeting that we have weekly, we have a standing agenda item of safety and wellness. So that comes up each week, and we're finding that really good conversations are driven from that, and that we're getting the follow-up that's required. Another example is you would have seen that we mentioned about the overdue actions. We take them to the executive team meeting, which meets weekly, and we've seen some significant improvement in that space as well. So yeah, that was pretty good in terms of the IOD space.
I think it's been a really valuable process, and in fact the executive have decided they're going to repeat it in a year's time, because I guess it highlighted a lot of good things that we're already doing, but there were a few things that they wanted to work on, and so it'll be interesting to see how that looks when they do it.
In addition to that, probably good to talk to you guys about the critical risk work we've been doing. So a significant piece of work in the fact that we've done a workshop with a big group of our MPDC teams. You will be familiar with the colourful critical risks that we have. We've done workshops with the team with them. We have now changed them slightly, so we've gone from 10 critical risks to top 12 with 3/4 just in the drafting process, contributing factors. So really well received. We went out to all staff for feedback. We felt that it was time that they didn't necessarily change the critical risks, but we just rejuvenated them, got people talking about them again, got them front of mind, because they're the risks that we really do need to focus on. They're the ones which, are going to cause that fatal catastrophic harm. So some good work in that space, and that will be coming out in the next quarterly report. We should have those tidied up by then.
Thank you. Comments or questions from the team? I'll just make a couple, obviously concerning in terms of the backlog of overdue actions in Dempster. It's always good to see a trend of downward rather than upward, especially when some of those actions could have impacts on other or could result in further health and safety related matters. Also a concern which Councillor Bruce usually raises, that the numbers for fatigue are going up again or trending up again, and that's generally in our water space, which I think is well understood by the majority of people on the Risk and Assurance Committee, but just flagging that it's going up again. And on page 99 it talks about inductions, and I'd like the team to give thought about what inductions would also look like for some of the independent members of the committees of councils like myself, like the Community Forum, etc. I don't have a solution for that, but it would be just good to think about what that could look like induction wise. Any further comments or questions for the team? But thank you, good work. Nice update in relation to looking or seeking out what best practice looks like and making it how we do that here. The recommendation in front of us, I would imagine, is that we've received a report. I'm happy to move. Councillor Andrew is seconding. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, minor carried. Thank you. My apologies, seeing that we've been skipping around, but we're going to move to item 8.7 now, because I can see Ken's rearing to get out of his seat, which is the risk update and the quarterly risk report. So welcome, Kelly, welcome, Ken. As per normal, a brief summary and then we'll open for comments and questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And, thank you for your time, committee. So look, I guess cutting to the chase, this is page 76 of the agenda. And in terms of the attachment was delivered separately, but the attachment you should have had was this quarterly risk report. I think that was distributed on Thursday of last week. Look, I'll just quickly walk you through that. One of the things, so it's the third page of that quarterly risk report. We are looking for you to confirm the risk management work plan 2026. So there's 3 items on there, page 3 of the attachment. So a risk maturity assessment, a further embedding of risk management in the organisation, which is looking to complete a risk management framework and associated training, etc. And then further work in terms of the business resilience, business continuity planning space. So look, the September meeting of this committee did agree that roadmap program for the year, but just given that there are many new faces around the table, just thought it was well worthwhile bringing that back for further confirmation. So with your indulgence, we'll come back to that when we present the recommendation, but just wanted to point that out. The next couple of pages of the quarterly risk report, you can see a top risk update, so you can see the summary of the 11 top risks. You can see the inherent risk rating, the current residual risk rating, and the risk appetite there. Yes, there are some gaps between, as the chair referred to earlier in the meeting, in the context of legislative compliance. There are some gaps between the risk appetite and where the risk is at. But look, that's how it stands at the moment. That's just a visual reminder of where we're at in terms of those top 11 risks, and we are looking to comprehensively review those in June of next year. Okay, so so annual review of these, next annual review due in June. Then the next section of the report, there's several pages here, the key risk indicators. I'm certainly not proposing to take you through those, but look, this is reasonably new reporting for Matamata-Piako. And you can see a little box at the top of the first page there. So these key risk indicators, the information that these should be giving you, should be giving you an indication of whether the risks that we've got in place are working or not. So that's what they're designed to do. Particularly just want to draw attention to to the disclosures on risk number 2. So they stretch across a couple of pages. So there's certainly some stuff there in terms of the waters activity, in terms of regulation and compliance and standard operating procedures. And to be fair, I guess there are some warnings in that space. If you have a look at the content, and happy to take any questions. But certainly some warnings in place just in regard to backflow management, where there is certainly a backlog of work and that backflow management testing, and also in the standard operating procedures. Certainly the staff in that space are saying that they're not as up to date as they would like them to be. So we're not saying that things are going to fall over tomorrow by any stretch of the imagination, but there is some backlog work in those spaces. There's also some indication on the next page in regard to condition and vulnerability of networks, which might make interesting reading for you. But look, a lot of the rest of the stuff, there is some stuff that's very consistent with our report last September. But again, happy in a few moments to take any questions on that. And then the two last things I want to talk about, and I'm towards the end of the report now. So the top risk mitigation implementation reporting, you see a very colourful horizontal bar chart there. What this is just measuring is at the time we signed off on these top risks in June of this year, we identified a number of new mitigating controls that we would like to introduce to drive the risk rating down further. That's just a progress measure in terms of what that's looking like. So we are seeing some blue. We're seeing some completed implementations. We're seeing a lot of green, which means we're on track to have that implemented this year. And then you're seeing some orange, which is ongoing, and you're seeing some grey, where we're saying actually that's going to happen. We're actively working on that, but it's not going to be until 26, 27. So just at a high level, that's what those couple of pages are. And then finally, Chair, just pointing out the very last page of that quarterly risk report, which is just looking at some emerging risks. And I guess this is sort of a bit of a scan across the sector, across some general knowledge. This is coming from David Robson of Aon, this last page, and he's just identified 3 risks that may or may not resonate with us, but just some things to be mindful of. And that's very much on elected member and staff safety. An ongoing concern, but certainly something that over the last year or so has certainly picked up in terms of being a risk. Resource consent compliance things, pick up on a couple of things that have particularly come out of the Auckland Council, and he's just suggesting that that's something to watch out for. And then the other one, outages through environmental events. So I guess there is perhaps a bit of alignment between that and the work that we are proposing to do in the business continuity, business resilience space. That would certainly be helpful in regard to that third potential emerging risk. So so Chair, that's a very quick run through the report. I'm very happy for any questions, and then keen to go to those recommendations after discussion.
Just a question. You mentioned the backflow prevention device. So I think that's another thing I had conversations around many years back. Is that the same ones where we went through the scenarios of, like, say, the hairdressers having to have black, and the butcher shops and all this? But then, when we talk about risk, and then the possible scenario where that would actually even be a thing, I think there'd be more like in winning lotto, to be fair. Wasn't it came down to, for example, that in the hairdresser shop, that the tap would have to be connected to, like, the perming solution, say, for example, and then just at that very second there was a drop in our pressure from our system that went lower than the pressure going back into the system, which it's not you know, there was many cases like that where it's not even how could that happen? And the same with a butcher's shop would have to have the hose turned on, sitting in blood when there has to be a drop in the pressure at the very same time for that to have any. Yeah, you know where I'm coming from, eh? I'm just we're implementing these things, which is frustrating. But surely we need to go down to the likelihood of that actually possibly happening.
Yeah, look, it's a great question, and I did see the CE reaching for his microphone, so I'll certainly give him the chance to respond, but great question.
Yeah, look, you're absolutely right, Mary Ash. It's a question of risk, and I think we need to put the backflow prevention devices into context. Prior to 2018, there are lots of what would be considered relatively high risk properties, and it's not the hairdressers, no, or the crematorium, or the undertakers, or all of those ones which are subject to regular inspection under the Public Health Act anyway. They are already been inspected. They already have their backflow devices in place. As you are aware, we had a program to ensure that other high risk properties actually got the devices installed, and we're talking about life troughs.
Yeah.
So we went through, we did those. What we're at now is, in terms of the standard, they should be inspected annually, and it's the inspections that have not been kept up. The requirement for those who have got their devices to actually get them inspected by a IQ, independently qualified or appropriately qualified party. IQP is the name is the acronym that comes to mind. So those inspections haven't happened. But to your point, the fact that the devices are there has reduced the risk significantly. It's actually making sure, and quite rightly, well, the water regulator hasn't flagged it at this point, there's an expectation that those inspections occur. And you're right, it is a risk management approach. And how big is the risk? Well, we're certainly a lot better off than we used to be, for sure. So it's one of those things that we need to be following up on of our property owners. They should be getting them done.
Yeah, I'm just alluding to, the necessary cost to businesses and that,
yeah.
At times it's tight, for them. And if we're imposing something that's the likelihood of happening is, like I say,
Yeah, well, I think, I don't disagree. It's a bit like Kanaha, the Polongi supply. Well, I don't disagree that in terms of the standard, that's already been set. So I think the team rightly say this is an area that does create a risk. How high is that risk? To your point, it's probably low. However, there's an expectation that those devices are inspected. So we just have to get onto it.
Do you mind if I just add to Ken's report? So just to explain, Dave Robson, he provides strategic risk advice to us. As I think I explained recently, we don't have a risk manager at the moment. So we've got Ken supporting us, but we've also got Dave. Dave has recently been undertaking some work on the business continuity plans for us. He's looking at our water supply plan in particular and doing a high level review. So it will just help us to understand any gaps or priorities that we may have.
Comments or questions from the team?
Just a comment, Ken, I'm just surprised that the outages created through environmental events is a so-called emerging risk. I mean, that's been around for ages now. You get a storm, you get power outage, you get a volcano go up, you lose your Wi-Fi or whatever it might be. So it's probably more than the emerging risk. It's been there the whole time. But that's as a farmer, you plan, you've got generators because you expect power outage. It's just business as usual, really.
Yeah, well, that's a fair comment, Councillor. Thank you.
Okay.
Right. So thank you for the report, guys. I'm quite keen to understand what the induction in terms of this will look like for elected members and risk and assurance committee members. And Ken, you mentioned that there'll be an annual review in June 2026. trying to understand what the RAC role or the risk insurance committee role will be in that. Will we be part of that? Will we be the recipient of the report that comes out of that? And then also I asked the risk insurance committee members to look at the reporting and ask yourself whether that meets your needs. Whether there's anything else that you need in that space, and some things for the team's consideration might be how long for a particular risk have we been outside of that appetite, and to what extent do we report on critical failures of internal controls for some of the, mitigations for these top risks.
Okay, yes, so there was several things there that you may just need to remind me of a couple of them as we go. But look, in terms of induction, so we did run. Actually, it was just this last week. It was just last Wednesday. We ran a 1 hour induction session, kind of a bit of a risk management 101 type session with the councillors. Very much picked up on things like the likelihood and consequence and how that generated a rating. That very much picked up on mitigating controls and how they brought the rating down if they were put in place and effective. And we did a little bit of an interactive exercise in terms of identifying some risk that may come from council's activity and perhaps some controls that can be put in place. So did that one session last week, and I think that was reasonably well received, and hopefully increased the knowledge base and understanding among the elected members. Jayden, you were talking about that June 2026 top risk thing. So look, I would see this committee being very, very actively involved in that. So I would see a kind of facilitated session with this group. Potentially other councillors who aren't a member of this committee could be involved in that session. But look, I'd see a fairly comprehensive session happening very much with this committee in June of this year. And I would suggest, although have not talked to either Manoa or Kelly in regard to this, but I would suggest in the lead up to that session that perhaps it would be appropriate to have a bit more induction training in the risk space, particularly focused on those high level strategic risks, which might make that session more productive if we've just had a little bit of prelim stuff in between. Yeah.
And the other two were when you're doing the deep dives, if you could also consider in your reporting how long we have been outside of appetite.
Yes.
And then so if there have been any critical failures of controls in relation to each of these top 11 risks, what does the reporting look like in that space, given that the Risk and Assurance Committee meets on a quarterly basis, trying to understand the escalation process, and at what stage does this Risk and Assurance Committee need to be notified?
Yes. Yep, that's good. So are you looking for a response on that now, or no? That's future actions. Yes.
Yeah, to be clear, I'm looking for a response in the papers.
Yes,
yeah,
good.
for the next one. Any further comments or questions from the team? So coming back to the recommendation, I note that you wanted us to reconfirm the work plan, especially for newer members. Were there anything to the contrary of that recommendation? No. Okay, so we will receive the report. We will confirm the quarterly risk report. Sorry. The risk management work plan within the report. I am moving. Could I please have a seconder? We've got me, Ash, secondly. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, comment carried. We've got Anne. Oh, yeah. So thank you, Tim. We're on to item 8.6, which is the annual plan for 26-27 issues and risks register. Team, in accordance with my declaration, I feel that the paper is heavily weighted towards Waikato Water, so I'm going to vacate the chair. And me Ash has agreed to take the chair for this particular item. So thank you for your indulgence. And I also recognise that we're slightly over time at the moment, so not much longer, team. Hang in there. Thanks.
Development of the annual plan for 26-27 is underway, and as part of that, a risk register and issues register have been developed. A range of risks have been identified, none of which have a residual rating above moderate. The issues register, there's two key issues that we're tracking. Issues related to government changes that affect the way that local government works. And the other issue is to do with the transition of water and wastewater to Waikato Water Limited halfway through the next annual plan period. So quite a lot of things to keep an eye on there. So we have regular communication with the executive team, with the waters transition team, and with the project lead for that transition team.
Any questions from the floor?
Just gonna go with you, is it?
Right here.
So easy.
So the transfer,
Sorry.
the transfer to Waikato Waters, that's in October, correct?
Yes.
Yep. And obviously we're going to have some workshops and stuff leading up to that, so we get our heads around it a bit more too.
There'll certainly be a number of trigger discussions that we'll need to bring to council, and probably workshop one of those. There's a transfer agreement we talked about earlier, because that's kind of the conditions on which everything happens and expectations and obligations in more detail. So yes, there'll be a number of discussions that we have to have between now and then.
Cool. Okay. I mean, the only risk I sort of see at the moment, well, one of the risks I see at the moment is obviously it was passed by the previous council, but you've got now some new councillors coming through, and that's newbies getting our heads around it, which I think we are. And then obviously, as we've talked to Mania, is make sure that the assets are separated properly, so we're not getting stormwater mixed with wastewater, etc., and having those little fiddly things happening down the line.
James, yeah. James. Well, you got any comments?
I'm just thinking what's occupying my mind around the annual plan is how do we, what's occupying my mind around the annual plan. Yeah. So the risk register looks really good. But the one thing that's occupying my mind.
Okay. So there's no further, the recommendation is the annual plan 26-27 issues and risks registers to be received. Andrew's moving, Bruce is seconding, all in favour, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carry. Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Yes. Just saying to you, well, you don't want to hear that. So the last item on our agenda today is 8.10. So thank you, Mayor Ash, for taking on. We appreciate it.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, great job. So we are now looking at the Risk and Assurance Committee work program, an update in terms of where we're at the time. Are you any comments on this, or just?
No, this is just reviewing where we're at this current point in time. Unless you've got any questions about any items that may not have come through, but I don't think it was on the agenda.
I had a question just from a procedural perspective of whether I understood originally that we might review our charter at this particular meeting, but it was reviewed at the last meeting of the Risk and Assurance Committee for the last triennium. And my understanding is in agreeing it there, we're effectively saying, ta-da, here is your charter. Yes. But I'm just sense checking that whether there's an appetite around the table that we should actually receive the data, especially the new ones, have a look at it, kick the tires and see whether we are comfortable. Given, like in the previous report, we had a work program that was agreed by the previous committee and we brought it back for confirmation. So I do think at the very minimum, at the very least we owe an opportunity for this committee to confirm we're comfortable with it.
So just clarification, the charter is for this committee or for the whole council?
For this committee. Yeah. But to terms of reference for this particular one.
And in September, we said we think it should carry over. That's what we said.
Yeah, and so the reason why we had done it in September, which is not the normal timing, is we used the opportunity of the committee members that have been there for 3 years to actually see what we had done and whether they were relatively comfortable, whether that reflected the work of the committee. And so the intention was to use that and then bring it forward to this committee to sense check that. And Kelly, if we could have that come through at the next committee meeting, if that could be circulated as part of the papers. If the committee members don't have it already, just to sense check and give an opportunity for feedback.
Council have approved the charter as part of the setup of the committee, but we continue to look back for further discussion to review this committee itself.
Thanks for that update. No, I'm guessing we'll have it come to the next committee meeting and then we'll just give the opportunity, because I know that the council papers might be a massive pack that you need to go through and that might have been one item. It would be a good opportunity for us to actually look at it as a committee and just sense check that we're comfortable with that.
Yep.
Yeah. I think we're good. Unless there were any other questions or comments, the recommendation in front of us is that we receive the information. Mayor Ash is moving. Can I please have a seconder? If we, I apologise. Councillor James is seconding. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, Kumana carried. Good team. So any other comments? Otherwise, I'm going to throw to Manaya to close with Karakia. Thank you very much for your engagement today. I know it's a tough ask, especially for those of you that were involved in the committee meeting this morning. Again, thanks to the team for the work that they've done, and especially for our finance and SSP team for all the work that they have done in that particular space. It was a tough call today, but I think it was a pragmatic call today. Although it pains me just saying. Okay. No further comments or questions, or over to Manai for closing.
Kia ora tātou, rere e nui ana, kia koutou e hui mai nei I roto I te kaupapa te rā. Atika o rera, nā he karakia whakakapi. Unuhia te pono o te tika te aroha. Kia piki ki runga, kia tau ki raro, kia kia mau. Draw forth what is truthful, what is right, what is loving. Let these qualities rise to the highest point and be firmly established below. Let them be steadfast and enduring. Haungi e hui e tae heki.
Team.
Thank you.